The stars were silent. For years, the Galactic Empire had swept through the galaxy, conquering planet after planet. No one had been able to stand in their way. Their warships were powerful, their soldiers ruthless. They thought they could crush anything that stood against them. Earth, a small, distant planet, was their next target. The Empire's fleet arrived without warning. Hundreds of ships, dark and imposing, filled the sky above Earth. They came from the farthest reaches of the galaxy, armed to the teeth and ready to take whatever they wanted. The humans below, unaware of the true scale of the threat, continued with their daily lives, until the Empire's ships appeared. At first, no one believed it. People looked up at the sky, thinking it was some kind of strange dream. But soon, the truth sank in. These were no ordinary ships. They were the ships of the Galactic Empire, known for destroying entire worlds with a single blow. Earth had no army, no defense, and no hope. Or so it seemed. On the surface, the planet was chaotic. Governments scrambled to figure out what to do. Some panicked, some tried to negotiate. But one thing was clear: no one expected to survive this. And then, something unexpected happened. The Empire's ships hovered over Earth's largest cities, their weapons primed and ready. They broadcast a simple message: surrender. You have no chance. Earth will belong to the Empire. The humans had no time to organize a plan. But in the darkest corners of Earth, people were already preparing. They had watched the stars, listened to the stories of alien threats, and realized that one day, this day, might come. They weren't prepared to face the full force of the Empire, but they wouldn't give up without a fight. Across the world, people began to act. Resistance groups, once thought to be nothing more than myths and legends, began to form. They were made up of ordinary men and women, soldiers, farmers, scientists, engineers who had been quietly preparing for this moment their entire lives. In secret, they gathered weapons, built defenses, and trained. They knew the Empire's forces would be too strong for any one group to handle. But together, they had a chance. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. The first shot was fired from the planet's largest military base. It was small, almost laughable to the Empire's advanced sensors. A single rocket aimed at one of the Empire's ships. The blast didn't even make a dent in the ship's armor, but it sent a message. Earth wasn't just going to give up. The Empire's commanders, at first, were amused. A rocket? That's their plan. They laughed. They had conquered entire civilizations with nothing but a wave of their hand. Earth would be no different. But the humans weren't done. From hidden bases all over the world, the Resistance launched wave after wave of attacks. They didn't have the Empire's technology or their vast numbers, but they knew their home better than anyone. They fought in the forests, in the cities, underground, and in the skies. The Empire's ships were powerful, but they weren't prepared for the human way of fighting. Reckless, unpredictable, and full of fire. One by one, Earth's cities began to fight back. Fighters, old and new, took to the skies, engaging the Empire's warships. Though the Empire's ships were far superior, the humans fought with everything they had. They were outmatched, but they weren't giving up. And then came the surprise. The Empire had thought they could take Earth without even breaking a sweat. But the humans had a secret, something the Empire didn't know about. Deep beneath the surface, hidden away for decades, was a warship. Not just any warship, but a massive ship, one that had been built during Earth's ancient wars. It had been forgotten, buried away after the war ended, but the humans had found it, and they had spent years making it ready. The warship was old, but its power was still unmatched by anything the Empire had. The humans didn't have many, but they had this one ship, and it was about to turn the tide. When the warship finally rose from the depths, it was like something out of a nightmare for the Empire. The massive ship powered up, its old engines roaring to life, and it shot into the sky, firing on the Empire's fleet. The blast hit an Empire ship dead center, sending it spiraling out of control. The Empire's commanders stared in disbelief. How could this old, rusty ship cause so much damage? They had been so sure of their victory, but now, it seemed they had underestimated their enemy. Back on the ground, the humans were stunned. The warship was real. It was working. And they had a chance. The first battle was over. Earth had fought back, and the Empire's fleet had taken a hit. But the war was just beginning. The humans had shown they were not as weak as the Empire thought. And the Empire, they had learned a painful lesson. Earth would not fall without a fight. The fleet commanders on the Empire ships were furious. They had expected an easy conquest, but they had been fooled. Earth's resistance was stronger than they ever imagined. As the first night after the attack fell, the humans looked up at the stars, knowing the Empire would return. But for now, they had won a small victory. It was only the beginning, but it was enough to send a message to the Empire. The fight for Earth had only just begun. The Empire's fleet may have been damaged, but they were not defeated. It was only a matter of time before they returned in full force. Yet the first victory was enough to ignite something in Earth's people, a spark that could not be extinguished. Across the planet, the resistance grew stronger. No longer was Earth a defenseless, divided world. Every country, every city, every small group of people who had quietly prepared for this moment now united with a single purpose: to protect their home. Governments that had once fought amongst themselves now joined together, setting aside old rivalries to stand against the greatest threat humanity had ever faced. The old warship, once thought to be a relic of the past, became a symbol of hope. Its cannons had torn through the Empire's ships, proving that Earth's technology, though far behind the Empire's, was not to be dismissed. Humans had something the Empire could not understand: determination. The Empire's strength was in its numbers and its advanced technology. But Earth had something deeper, something the Empire had not prepared for: human spirit. Resistance groups in every corner of the world began to coordinate, planning their next moves carefully. They had seen how powerful the Empire's fleet could be, but they also realized the Empire's biggest mistake. They had underestimated Earth. The Empire's generals thought humans would break after the first battle, but they hadn't. Instead, Earth had fought back with everything it had. And now, the war wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for humanity's future. In secret, scientists and engineers from all over the world worked day and night. They began to reverse engineer the technology of the Empire's destroyed ships. They took apart what they could, analyzing every part, every detail, and began to understand how they could use that knowledge to build their own weapons. It was a slow process, but with the warship as their foundation, Earth's inventors were making progress. While the scientists worked, Earth's military leaders knew they needed to strike before the Empire could regroup. They sent small hit-and-run teams to harass the Empire's remaining forces. These guerrilla tactics were difficult and dangerous, but they worked. The Empire's fleet, though powerful, was scattered and uncoordinated, and Earth's forces, small as they were, knew how to fight for their survival. It was in the skies that humanity's greatest weapon began to take shape. Earth's pilots, many of them former civilians with no military experience, took to the skies in the old fighter jets that had been left behind from past wars. They had no chance against the Empire's warships in a direct fight, but they had something else: the element of surprise. They attacked from unexpected angles, using Earth's terrain and weather to their advantage. The Empire's commanders were frustrated, not understanding how humans, with their inferior ships, were managing to cause so much trouble. But the humans weren't done yet. They had seen what the Empire's ships could do, and they were determined to find a way to turn the tide of the war in their favor. They knew they could never match the Empire's numbers, but they didn't need to. They just needed to outsmart them. In one of the most daring moves of the war, a group of resistance fighters captured an Empire communication ship. It wasn't easy. This ship was heavily guarded, and the resistance had to work quickly. But when they succeeded, they discovered something that would change everything. The Empire's secret plans. The documents revealed the Empire's next move, a full-scale invasion to wipe out the human resistance once and for all. The Empire was preparing to send its most powerful fleet, the ones equipped with the latest weapons and technology, to Earth. They were ready to crush humanity in one final devastating blow. But the humans now had a choice. They could either continue to fight the small, skirmishing battles they had been winning, or they could take the fight directly to the Empire's heart. With the information they had stolen, they could plan a counterstrike that would hit the Empire where it would hurt the most. It was a risky move. If they failed, Earth would fall. But if they succeeded, the Empire's plans would be shattered. The leaders of the resistance met in secret, discussing their options. Some believed they should wait for the Empire's attack and defend Earth to the last man. Others argued that it was time to take the fight to the Empire, to show them that humanity could no longer be treated like a powerless species. In the end, they decided to act. Earth's greatest weapon, the warship, would be used not just to defend Earth, but to strike first. The humans would launch a surprise attack on one of the Empire's largest fleet bases, hoping to destroy their resources before the full invasion could begin. The plan was set in motion. The warship, now fully repaired and armed with the knowledge the humans had gained, would lead the charge. The resistance fighters, pilots, and soldiers, ordinary men and women who had come together to defend their planet, would carry out the attack. As the first ships of the resistance took off from Earth's surface, heading for the Empire's fleet base, the soldiers aboard the warship could feel the weight of the mission. They knew they were about to do something that had never been done before. They were about to take the fight to the heart of the Empire. As the warship powered up its engines, preparing for the long journey to the Empire's base, the crew members looked out at the stars. They knew this wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. This was a fight to prove that humanity had a place in the galaxy. They weren't going to let the Empire take their planet without a fight. And so, with the Empire unaware of the human plans, Earth's resistance made its move. The first real strike of the war had begun. The Empire would soon learn that Earth had far more to offer than they ever realized, and they would soon pay the price for underestimating humanity. The tension in the air was thick as the Resistance's warship, now fully armed and prepared, cut through space. The crew on board had no illusions about the task ahead. They were about to face the full might of the Galactic Empire's fleet, but they also knew this mission could change everything. Earth's survival rested on their success. The attack on the Empire's fleet base was a gamble. The Resistance had planned every detail meticulously, but there were no guarantees. One mistake, one misstep, and the entire mission could collapse. The stakes were higher than ever, but the humans had no choice but to press forward. They had no more time to wait. The Empire's invasion force was coming, and they needed to strike first. As the warship neared the Empire's fleet base, the sensors blared a warning. The Empire had detected the approaching ships. The crew felt a surge of fear mixed with determination. This was it, the moment they had trained for. The fight for Earth had reached its turning point. The Empire's response was immediate. Their fleet, once thought to be scattered and disorganized, quickly assembled in the darkness of space. Hundreds of ships appeared on the sensors, massive and imposing, each one bristling with weapons that could annihilate entire planets. But what the Empire didn't realize was that the humans weren't fighting alone anymore. From the surface of Earth, resistance groups launched their own attacks. Smaller ships, outfitted with scavenged Empire technology and weapons, joined the battle. The humans had come together in ways the Empire could never have predicted. Their ragtag fleet, though small in comparison, fought with unmatched courage and cleverness. The Empire's commanders couldn't understand how a planet of primitive beings had managed to put up such a fight. As the warship entered the heart of the Empire's base, the battle intensified. Empire ships fired their devastating weapons, but the humans were prepared. The warship dodged and weaved through the oncoming fire, expertly navigating the chaos. Each blast from the Empire's ships shook the space around them, but the humans' warship pressed forward, its cannons firing back with deadly accuracy. The Empire's commanders were stunned. How was this possible? They had underestimated Earth's ability to fight back. But now, they realized, it wasn't just the warship that was causing trouble, it was the entire human resistance. The Empire's mighty fleet was being disrupted by these unexpected, small, and unpredictable attacks. They couldn't keep up with the humans' tactics. Their pride had blinded them to the fact that Earth was not an easy target. On board the warship, the crew fought with everything they had. Every moment was a struggle. The crew worked in unison, their training kicking in as they navigated the battle. There was no room for fear or hesitation. Each decision, each action, could mean the difference between life and death. The ship's captain, a former pilot from Earth's military, barked orders, keeping everyone focused. They knew they had a chance, but they also knew the risks. The Empire's ships were strong, and their numbers seemed endless. Despite the odds, Earth's forces began to gain ground. The warship, with its superior speed and maneuverability, disabled the Empire's largest vessel, sending it spiraling into the darkness. The Empire's commanders, shaken by the loss, began to panic. They had always assumed that their superior firepower would ensure victory, but Earth had proven them wrong. The humans were not backing down. They were pushing back, and the Empire was struggling to keep up. The resistance fighters on the ground had also been busy. They sabotaged the Empire's supply lines, destroyed key installations, and spread chaos wherever they could. While the Empire focused on the warship and its daring assault, the humans on the surface were making their presence felt. The resistance had become a force to be reckoned with. The humans weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for their freedom. And in that moment, the Empire's empire of arrogance and overconfidence began to crack. But the Empire wasn't done yet. As the battle raged on, the Empire's high command issued a final order: the full destruction of Earth. The remaining fleet ships were to converge on Earth's atmosphere and launch a full-scale bombardment. The Empire had decided that they would no longer waste time with small skirmishes. It was time to end the war, once and for all. The warship, knowing what was coming, made a desperate decision. It would not let the Empire destroy Earth. The captain gave the order to launch one final assault on the Empire's central command ship, the flagship that controlled the entire fleet. The crew knew that it was a suicide mission. But if they could destroy the flagship, they could cripple the Empire's ability to fight. With everything they had, the warship made a daring approach toward the flagship, dodging fire from every direction. The crew pushed the warship to its limits, sacrificing everything for one last shot. As the flagship came into view, the warship fired a barrage of powerful shots, hitting the heart of the flagship's engines. The explosion was massive. The flagship, once the pride of the Empire, shattered into pieces, sending debris into space. The shockwave of the explosion reverberated through the Empire's fleet. Their ships, once confident and organized, were now in chaos. The fleet's command structure had collapsed. For the first time since the start of the invasion, the Empire's forces were losing ground. The humans had done it. They had struck at the heart of the Empire. And now the tables were turning. But the battle was far from over. The Empire had not been completely defeated, and Earth's forces still faced enormous odds. The war was not yet won, but one thing was clear. The Empire had underestimated humanity's strength, and now they would pay the price. The turning point had arrived. The humans had shown the Empire that they were not the weak, defenseless creatures the Empire had once thought them to be. Earth had become a force to be reckoned with. The Empire, once certain of victory, now had to face the reality. They were not invincible, and Earth was ready to make them pay for every moment of their arrogance. The explosion of the Empire's flagship sent shockwaves through both sides of the battlefield. Earth's resistance forces, though still vastly outnumbered, roared in triumph. The humans had dealt a blow that no one had expected, shattering the Empire's sense of invincibility. However, the victory came at a steep price. The warship, though it had successfully completed its mission, was heavily damaged. The crew members, exhausted and battered, knew their fight was far from over. With the flagship destroyed, the remaining Empire fleet was thrown into disarray. Their command structure, once precise and ironclad, was now in chaos. The fleet had lost its central leadership, and now every remaining ship had to operate on its own. But despite the confusion, the Empire was not going to retreat. They had underestimated humanity before, but now, with their pride wounded and their resolve hardened, they were prepared to wipe out Earth in one final decisive strike. The Empire's remaining forces reorganized quickly. Ships that had been scattered and disoriented were now rallying together. Their weapons, though they had suffered some damage, were still formidable. Earth's forces had managed to hold their ground, but it was clear that they couldn't win this fight just by playing defense. On Earth, the Resistance knew that they had to press their advantage. The destruction of the flagship was a victory, but it was only the beginning. Earth's military leaders realized that this might be their only chance to take the fight to the Empire's homeworld, the source of all their power. If they could strike at the heart of the Empire, they might be able to end the war once and for all. But that meant launching an assault on the Empire itself, something no one had ever dared to attempt. The Empire's homeworld was heavily fortified, with defenses that would make Earth's fleet seem like a collection of toys. But Earth had come too far to back down now. They had already proven that the Empire could be defeated. Now they needed to prove that Earth could finish what had been started. With this new strategy in mind, the Resistance leaders gathered. The decision was made. Earth would launch an all-out offensive on the Empire's homeworld. The warship, though damaged, would be their flagship in this final strike. The humans knew this mission was a suicide mission for most of them. They couldn't hope to match the Empire's forces in sheer firepower. But what they had was something more powerful: resolve, unity, and the will to fight for their planet. These were things the Empire could never understand. As Earth's forces began to mobilize for the attack, the people of Earth had one final chance to witness the determination of their defenders. Resistance groups around the world sent every available fighter, every piece of technology they could gather, and every soldier willing to lay down their life for their home. The warship was surrounded by hundreds of smaller ships, human-made but reinforced with scavenged technology from the Empire. Every ship was brimming with people ready to fight, ready to die, to prove that Earth would not be enslaved, would not be extinguished. The journey to the Empire's homeworld was long, filled with danger at every turn. Along the way, Earth's fleet had to fight off several remaining Empire battalions, each encounter pushing the humans to their limits. But each victory brought them closer to their goal. Every battle strengthened their resolve. No one on Earth had ever fought with such unity, with such purpose. As the fleet approached the Empire's homeworld, the sight was terrifying. The planet itself was surrounded by a massive defense grid, dozens of warships, space stations, and advanced weapon systems. It seemed impossible that Earth could break through. But the Resistance had no other choice. This was their final chance. The battle began. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as Earth's fleet collided with the Empire's defenses. The warship led the charge, weaving in and out of enemy fire, firing powerful shots that took down Empire ships one by one. Earth's smaller ships, though not as powerful, fought fiercely, using every trick they had learned in the past battles to evade and strike back. The Empire, though powerful, was beginning to falter under the relentless assault. But the Empire was not going to let Earth win so easily. From the surface of their homeworld, massive weapons fired into space, targeting the incoming ships. Earth's forces had to split up, dodging lasers and missiles, trying to break through the overwhelming defenses. It was a brutal, all-out war. The humans had pushed the Empire to the brink, but they were still facing an enemy with far more firepower. The Resistance warship took the brunt of the fire. As it neared the planet's surface, the shields began to fail, and the hull began to crack under the intense bombardment. But the crew remained focused. They had come this far, and they weren't going to stop now. The captain gave the order for a final, desperate strike. The warship would make a suicide dive into the Empire's central defense system and destroy it from the inside. It was a move that would cost the crew everything, but it was the only way to ensure the destruction of the Empire's homeworld. With one final surge of energy, the warship plunged toward the heart of the Empire's defenses. The crew knew they were likely to die, but they also knew that this act would be the blow that broke the Empire's back. They were fighting not just for their own survival, but for the survival of every future generation on Earth. As the warship crashed into the Empire's defense grid, a massive explosion shook the space around them. The shockwave ripped through the Empire's systems, disabling the weapons and defenses protecting their homeworld. The Empire's command was shattered, their main line of defense destroyed. In that moment, Earth's forces saw what they had been fighting for, the beginning of the end for the Empire. Though the battle had taken its toll, the humans had done the impossible. They had breached the Empire's defenses and struck at the heart of their power. But the war was not yet over. The Empire still had fleets across the galaxy, and Earth's forces were weary. But one thing was certain: the Empire's reign was ending, and the people of Earth had proven that they would never be enslaved again. The fall of the Empire had begun. The dust of battle settled over the ruins of the Empire's defenses, but Earth's victory was not yet complete. The Empire, though shaken and wounded, was far from defeated. Its remaining fleets, scattered across the galaxy, had begun to rally, and its leaders were determined to make one final push to crush the human resistance once and for all. As Earth's fleet regrouped and prepared for the inevitable counterattack, a sense of urgency filled the air. The damage from their assault on the Empire's homeworld was significant, but so was the cost. The warship, the flagship of their mission, had been destroyed in the final blow. Many of Earth's forces had taken heavy losses, and their resources were running thin. The crew had fought with everything they had, but now, in the quiet aftermath of their success, they were faced with a new reality. They were running out of time. The remaining Empire fleet was angry, relentless, and determined to reclaim its pride. The Empire's leaders, no longer willing to retreat, issued an order for a full-scale assault on Earth. They would not let this rebellion stand. Their pride demanded revenge, and they would do whatever it took to wipe humanity from the stars. The resistance leaders on Earth knew that the final battle was coming. They had to prepare, not only to defend their home, but to strike the final blow to the Empire. Earth had proven that it could stand up to the Empire's power, but the next fight would be the most dangerous yet. The human leaders came together, discussing strategies, plans, and the harsh reality that their numbers were dwindling. The Empire was coming, and this would be the ultimate test of their strength. They had to hold Earth at all costs, or everything they had fought for would be lost. But Earth's leaders weren't the only ones preparing for this final showdown. Throughout the galaxy, planets that had once been under the Empire's control had begun to rebel. The Empire's grip was slipping, and now, as word spread about the human resistance's victory, other species were rallying to Earth's side. The galaxy's oppressed races saw in humanity a spark of hope, a sign that they too could stand up against their tyrannical rulers. The human resistance was no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future of the galaxy, and their cause had sparked a flame of rebellion in every corner of the universe. Earth's allies were gathering, and together, they formed a united front against the Empire's crumbling power. As the Empire's final fleet began its approach toward Earth, it was clear that this would be the greatest battle the galaxy had ever witnessed. The Empire had no choice but to try to wipe out Earth once and for all. But now, they were facing more than just humanity. They were facing an alliance of rebels from every corner of the galaxy, united by the one thing the Empire could never understand: the will to fight for freedom. The first wave of the Empire's assault arrived in the form of massive warships. each one capable of obliterating entire cities with a single strike. They began their bombardment on Earth's outer defenses, firing lasers that tore through the atmosphere. The ground shook as the Empire's ships released wave after wave of destruction. But the humans had prepared. The Resistance, bolstered by their new allies, had fortified Earth's defenses. Though the bombardment was intense, it was not enough to break the will of the people. Earth's defenses fought back with everything they had, launching counterattacks with incredible precision. The sky was alive with explosions as Earth's forces and the Empire's warships clashed in the atmosphere. Meanwhile, on the ground, the Resistance fighters prepared for a final desperate push. They knew that Earth's survival depended on breaking the Empire's control once and for all. The streets, once full of fear, now echoed with the sounds of hope and determination. Every Resistance fighter, every person who had once been afraid, was now fighting with everything they had. The last stand was upon them. As the battle in space raged on, the final confrontation between Earth's forces and the Empire's fleet began to unfold. Earth's fleet, though battered and fewer in number, fought with unmatched ferocity. The Empire's ships were huge and powerful, but humanity's ingenuity and determination made them unpredictable. The humans used their knowledge of the Empire's tactics, combined with their unconventional methods, to outmaneuver the superior ships. The warship that had led the final assault on the Empire's homeworld, though destroyed, had inspired a new generation of soldiers. The human fleet had learned from their mistakes. They had adapted, fought smarter, and now they were striking back with a vengeance. The Empire's massive warships, once thought unbeatable, were now slowly being picked apart. The final battle was reaching its peak. The Empire's flagship, the last symbol of their dominance, came into view. It was a massive ship, larger than any of the others, and heavily shielded. It carried the Empire's last hopes for victory. If it could survive, Earth would fall. But the humans had one final plan. The Resistance fighters, alongside their new allies, launched an all-out attack on the flagship. It was a dangerous, near-suicidal mission, but they knew that if they succeeded, the Empire would be finished. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The battle for the flagship was fierce. Explosions rocked the flagship's hull as Earth's forces pressed forward. Each explosion brought them closer to victory, but also brought them closer to the edge of destruction. The flagship's defenses were weakening, but so were Earth's forces. Every blast, every maneuver, every strike was critical. In the end, it was the humans' determination that won the day. The flagship, crippled by the relentless assault, was finally destroyed. The Empire's remaining ships began to retreat, their morale shattered, their pride broken. The final blow had been struck. The Empire had fallen. Earth, against all odds, had won. The galaxy would never be the same. The oppressive rule of the Empire was over, and the universe had been set on a new path, one where freedom, unity, and hope could thrive. The Resistance, once a small group of rebels fighting for survival, had become the galaxy's beacon of hope. Earth had not only survived, but it had changed the fate of the entire universe. The battle was over, but the war for freedom had been won. And the humans had shown that no empire, no matter how vast, could ever extinguish their will to fight.